Welcome to Benson on Injury Law.
Welcome back to Benson on Injury Law with Paul Benson. Paul is a personal injury attorney based in Wisconsin. He spent the last decade helping people across the state get the compensation they deserve after serious injuries. From car crashes to dog bites, he's handled hundreds of cases and fought for clients in both state and federal court. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and in today's episode, we're talking about what to do if you or your child is bitten by a dog. Many people don't realize that Wisconsin has some of the strongest dog bite laws in the country, but also that the steps you take right after an incident can make or break your case. Paul, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kevin.
So how common are dog bite cases in Wisconsin?
Way more than you think. I probably get as many calls for dog bites as almost anything, and I'm seeing the number increase. I think as a culture, we've become more dog friendly, which is probably good. But just part of the trade-off is there's just more interactions between dogs and people now, whether you be on a hiking trail or on your patio. We just see more dogs. So I think there's just more dog bites now.
That's a good point too, like just of the culture. I mean, you go to a beer brewery and there's dogs, like a lot of places that at least they don't serve food, they allow dogs to be there. So yeah, there's just more chances for these things to happen.
100%. So you just have more interactions, especially with kids. That's most of the cases we see are with young children. Something about the eye level similarity between large dogs and young kids. It seems like, sadly, that brings out the worst in some of these situations.
Yeah, it's almost like the lack of trust or something with dogs. But I totally know what you mean. There's like a different. They just treat kids differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the most common injuries that you see? Like, how bad does it get?
Sure. You see bites all over, mostly on legs, hands, and on the face. Hands and face are where it gets pretty scary because infection can get in, and because there are so many small nerves and small muscles in both your hand and your face, you can really have lasting damage with even what seems to be a pretty minor bite.
Mm-hmm. So what is the first thing someone should do if they or their child is bitten by a dog?
The most important thing is to call the police or the sheriff's department. The reason is you need to find out if that dog had its vaccinations up to date. And if the dog does not, here in Wisconsin, the sheriff's department actually will impose a quarantine on that dog and make sure the dog gets vaccinated, or so that in the future, you don't have like a rabies risk or something like that. That's the number one most important thing. Number two, make sure you go to the emergency department. Even if you think it's a minor bite, because you need to have that bite professionally cleaned. There are a lot of bacteria inside of a dog's mouth. And the worst part of most dog bite claims is actually the infection. So many, many people suffer infections, and that infection is actually what causes the long-term damage.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And what does the law in Wisconsin say about the dog owners? Because, not a lot of times dogs or owners don't know. They don't know if they have a bad dog, if you will. I had a dog once. My wife and I had a dog that bit someone, and we didn't know he was a rescue. We thought he was nice. We just had no idea. But how do dog owners get held responsible?
So two different ways. Number one, we do have a strict liability statute for all animals, not just dogs. But if your dog injures someone, you are liable. You don't have to prove, in this case, the victim does not have to prove that dog owner was negligent. So even if that dog owner had the dog on a leash or whatever it may be, they're going to be responsible, and you don't have to prove that the dog owner was negligent. The law basically says the person who's been injured is not really in a strong position to go back and prove what that dog owner's knowledge was or wasn't about the dangerous propensities of the dog.
Yeah.
So the legislator just removed that burden from injured people, which I think is really good. The other important thing is, there are double damages available if the dog has previously injured someone. So another good reason to report it, so that future people have that benefit and are aware that there's a dangerous dog in their area. But again, if that dog had injured someone before, does it again, our statute says you could be entitled to up to double your damages.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you though. I think that makes a lot of sense. It shouldn't be up to the injured party to try to figure out what the owner knew or didn't know, or where they got the dog, or any of that stuff.
No, exactly. And as a society, we've decided, at least in Wisconsin and in most states, that we want to encourage responsible dog ownership. So this puts that burden on the dog owner, where I think, and that's where it properly belongs.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I agree, and hopefully people take it seriously. I mean, we ended up getting giving up our dog that had bit somebody because we didn't know much about him, and he was a rescue, and we just didn't want any problems. The person that he had bitten was really cool. It was not a severe bite, but it was scary, and do you think most people take it seriously when their dog bites someone, or do they brush it off?
I think, like anything, there's good owners and bad owners.
Sure.
The rescue thing is, I think, a factor as well, because I think, again, I think it's a positive step in society that now we try to rescue and place these dogs in homes rather than euthanizing them. Problem is, like you don't know that dog's background. The
Right.
dog can't report to you whether it was mistreated by its previous owner. So some of these dogs sadly just carry some baggage into their new home, and I think that's another reason why dog bites are on the rise.
Hmm. Does homeowners insurance come into play in these cases, or any type of insurance?
Yeah, homeowners insurance is what covers most of these bites. There are, of course, exceptions, but as long as you weren't using your home for a business or something like that, normally your homeowners policy will cover you if your dog bites someone, and that's really important because sometimes these happen by neighbors or friends or family members, and you don't really want to have to take money out of your neighbor's pocket.
Yeah.
But normally, when I'm able to explain, there's homeowners insurance for a reason. This is why they paid premiums for years. If not now, when would be a good use of this, right?
Yeah.
So normally, when I'm able to explain that, not only to the injured person, but also to the dog owner, normally it's a pretty amicable process.
Yeah. And does the homeowners policy cover on a hiking trail too, or does it have to be at or near the home?
It's a great question. It covers anywhere because it covers the owner's liability, the homeowner. The misconception is that a homeowner's policy is just for the home. I would say the vast majority of people, close to all people, believe that. But that policy is really in place to cover the owner's liability because the lender doesn't want their largest asset, the home, to be encumbered with a lien. So they require that homeowner's policy to actually cover the homeowner for their liability, which in this case includes dog bites.
Okay. And I think there's probably a propensity for a lot of people that they don't want to, press charges or file a claim. I mean, like your point before, it can be a family member, it's a neighbor, someone, friend, someone you know. What would you say to somebody who might be listening to this podcast going, well, I'm not gonna call, to turn in my neighbor. It happens.
Uh, totally. Well, two things. Let me have that conversation with the owner of the dog, and I'm normally able to explain that this is the right thing to do, and this is why you paid those insurance premiums. And you're personally not going to have to pay for anything. You're not going to have to come out of pocket to pay for these medical bills. So I think that's a really good option for to help explain that to the injured person.
Okay. And you talked about making sure you get to a doctor, making sure that you file the police report, or call the police so that it can get documented. What is there other evidence that people should try to collect if possible? Sort of like when we talk about a car accident or something like that. Is there stuff that you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. Photos. So lots of photos of the bite as it heals. The reality is a lot of these claims are resolved years later and memories fade. So if we can help show what that bite was like, what the bruising looked like, what the wound and the stitches looked like, that's going to help communicate ultimately to a jury or a defense lawyer, whoever it may be, what you went through. So taking those photos as your injury heals is super important.
Okay, photos. Anything else that people should consider, or is it pretty much just photos? Call the police, get to a doctor, and then
Yeah,
call you.
I think Photos and call the police. Those are the important things. I normally tell people, don't worry about trying to get like a recorded statement from the dog owner or something like that. Sometimes tempers can still be high.
Yeah.
And I often see re-attacks from dogs where the dog actually then attacks a second time because of a dispute between the injured person and the dog owner. That's really, really not uncommon. So I normally say, hey, get yourself to a safe area, call the police, take photos, let me worry about the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a stressful situation, obviously.
Yeah, it is.
So everyone's emotions are running high, regardless of what side they're on,
Yep.
including the dog, for that matter.
Yes. Yes.
Is it different? Is if it's a child versus an adult, are cases handled differently?
They are. First, the statute of limitations is much longer. It doesn't run until 1 year after the child's 18th birthday. So when they turn 19, that's when that statute of limitations runs. Second, any settlement has to be approved by a judge. So in Wisconsin, we want to make sure those kids are taken care of, that the money's not going to the wrong place, that it's being managed in an appropriate way for that minor. So we have to get that court approval for the minor who's been bitten by a dog. Also, again, like we said before, sadly, they're normally just worse bites because not only are they kids lower to the ground, so their faces are involved more often, sadly, but also they're growing. So if you do have an injury to the leg or the hand while they're growing, it can cause additional complications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try really hard to teach my son. He's almost 5, and we try really hard. We have 2 dogs at home, but you can't just go up to any dog. You gotta, check with the owner, make sure it's okay. Maybe check with us. Don't just walk up to any dog. But it's easier said than done. Kids are naturally curious and usually love animals.
Yep. One of the most common things I see is out on a trail, a child wanting to go pet a dog, the owner saying it's fine, and the child doing something that probably just surprised the dog, and then the dog unfortunately biting the child. So that is one of the most common things that we see is it starts with a good interaction and ends poorly.
Interesting. So even with the owner's permission, it still happens pretty often that way.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. Because I've definitely had people say like, like my son will be interested in the dog and they'll be like, yeah, we'd prefer not, and I get it.
Yep.
I'm like, great, awesome. Thanks for telling me that,
Yep.
So not every dog likes
Yep.
kids. So that's a good thing that you told me,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that doesn't always solve the problem apparently.
Yeah. I've got 3 kids. My youngest is 3. He's still in that age where he thinks it's a good idea to pull on the dog, mess with the dog, and that's when those things happen because a 3-year-old doesn't know any better. So
yeah,
no, it's great. It's a great point.
Yeah, for sure. What about a dog on dog? Like if a dog bites another dog or hurts or harms, do you handle cases like that ever?
Yeah, that's where Wisconsin law is less friendly. So we treat dogs here like property. So we say all you can get in that case is the medical expenses for the dog, the vet expenses. You can't get any like pain and suffering for the animal or yourself for what the dog went through. Although I will tell you, lots of people get bit after their own dog gets bit. Let's say you're out walking your dog, another dog off leash comes and attacks your dog. You try to break it up, you get injured. That happens a lot.
Yep.
Or I see maybe an elderly person who's walking their dog on a leash, another dog comes up and they get pulled to the ground and actually suffer like a fall injury because of the other dog. That is still covered by our dog bite statute. So no matter how you're injured by that dog, at least I would argue the strict liability statute still applies. I guess the defense sometimes argues differently, but I would argue it still applies. And I've handled lots of those cases. Or where the dog, again, I keep talking about trails, but where a cyclist or runner is on a trail and a dog jumps up and that cyclist or runner falls, again, that's covered by the statute. And you can make that same recovery against the homeowner's policy like we talked about. Doesn't have to be a bite.
It doesn't have to be a bite. Yeah. That's really interesting. That makes sense though. I mean, it does,
Yep.
It's still the dog injuring somebody.
Yes, it is. Yep.
So okay.
And again, you're seeing it more here. We have in Rock County, it's called the Ice Age Trail, and it's a really popular trail for cyclists, runners, and dog walkers. So anytime you just get all of those together, unfortunately, you get some injuries.
Yeah, for sure. So when someone calls you about a dog bite, what does that conversation look like? How does the process unfold?
Yeah, the first step is I want to just make sure that they've gotten checked out and got that wound clean. So hopefully we can avoid the infections. Number two, have we called the police department or the sheriff's department? If yes, then I want to set up a meeting at my office as soon as possible so that I can get involved with making sure those medical bills get paid properly and we get the homeowner's claim open in a timely manner.
Okay. And do these typically? I mean, these typically, I assume, aren't too contentious of cases, right? I mean, between the parties.
Normally not.
Yeah.
Normally not when you know the other person, it's normally not too bad. But yes, sometimes they can be, right? If it is an off-leash situation and the dog bites someone, sometimes those people are unwilling to give their homeowners information, their homeowners insurance information. And that's when we have to file a lawsuit to get that information.
Why would they not want to do that?
I think that some people are very concerned about their insurance premiums going up more than they are maybe about a kid getting bit by a dog. I don't share those values, but
Yeah.
you do see that semi-frequently.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess everyone's always afraid of their insurance premiums going up, but
Yeah,
that's why you have it, right?
that's why you have insurance. That's why you pay
Yeah.
those premiums for when stuff happens. I really try to tell the dog owner this is no different than a tree falling on your roof. You're going to have to make a claim, and it's just part of life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Interesting stuff. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Benson on Injury Law. If you or your child has been bitten by a dog, don't wait to get answers. Visit paulbensonlawfirm.com to schedule a free consultation. Find out what your options are. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review. We very much appreciate it. Paul, always great seeing you. Thanks so much.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.